Hello.
G'day. So,
Happy New Year.
Jerry and the Eighth, are we real people or are we agents?
Let me do some eight. Uh, how's everybody's holidays?
Good. We actually had some snow. Actually got out and got some skiing done.
Yeah, it was really great. Take a bit of a break, especially the year was so intense.
Hmm.
Uh,
Wanging, was this page generated by Claude?
this one was, but I
That's
edited.
that's
Didn't I do
okay.
that? Yeah,
It's a
it
lot easier to
was.
edit.
Oh, actually, I didn't edit the content itself. No, no, this
Um,
was generated. Yeah. It's still, it's still missing that to like automated further. I'm not sure which approach would go, but that would be interesting because it would be nice to not only summarize, this meeting, but as we are talking, then produce the next week's agenda. That would be real good. That would be real good. At the moment, that you still have to sort of ask and talk. It wouldn't be able to, I think, fully imply or understand what we were talking about and picking up the portion that we meant for action next week. That
I think I think certainly Claude could in agent mode.
it could,
In agent mode, if you were to say, here's the template, go through the
yeah,
transcript and figure out the to-dos that were, update the to-dos on this week's
right.
page, and anything that wasn't done, put it on the next page. I've been playing a lot with the agent stuff, and giving it a list of tasks, it can manage the tasks.
Yeah, so that would be something. If we do that manually, I don't know how consistent it will be able to produce, but I think it should have the capacity at the moment to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as long as you're able to give it the transcripts.
of course. Yeah, yeah. Um,
So you would still have to upload that because I don't know.
oh, the transcript itself, I think if I give it a access, it wouldn't remember how to do it. Just go grab it. Here's the location.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that is also doable. So all this can be done. We just don't know how good a quality it is. So far, formatting and all that timing, if everything seemed to be doing pretty well.
Well, I just went through an exercise where I gave it like a bunch of tasks, like to dos, and a form to fill out. So do this, go get the answer, come back, fill out the form, go to the next, and so on and so on. And
Right.
if you created a page of giving it basically, the workflow, like the
Yeah, yeah,
requirements,
yeah.
it'll follow your requirements.
Yeah. What's impressive to me is the fact that yes, it can copy the format, and when they run into technical problem, it would find creative ways, even writing little program, finding a new tool, etc., to do it. But also that from the past meeting minutes, you would know that we are going weekly, the time, know how to shift it, know the whole meeting was an hour long so that the minutes add together are correct. All that sort of thing is figured out by itself. So you don't have to tell them.
It is impressive.
Yeah, it is. It is. It
I
is.
mean, even if it doesn't get it right, it'll probably get 80-20. So to spend 20% of your time on it, it's well worth it.
Yes, correct.
And it's transferable, right? Because if you don't want to be, the chair anymore and someone else is going to take over, it's a lot easier to take over. You say, here's the script.
Well, this agent
Just
will
tell it
take
to run the
over,
script.
I think.
It's called
Uh,
succession planning.
yeah. Thank you. All right, so we should get started. And so here's the antitrust policy notice and the trust of IP's IPR policy notice. Happy New Year, and all those things are the AI generated as well. So usually what we do is to have a quick introduction for people who are relatively new here, and then we have some kind of a news and events section. Then for today, we thought we would just go into this is the item we had it in the last meeting of last year, but we'll look at some of the proposed activities for this year and maybe get input on how we may organize all of those. So what each of your priorities are. And while you are here, what would you like this working group to achieve in 2026? So that would be our main topic. How's the agenda sound like? Sounds
Wonderful.
good. Okay. Anyone want to then make an introduction? If you feel you don't know everybody or not everybody
Yeah,
knows,
I'm new to the
go
group.
ahead.
I can make my introduction.
Please do.
Uh, so I was looking over the AIM-WG 2026 focus and deliverables, and I've actually worked on many of the things there. I haven't done anything directly with TSP, but almost everything else I have existing white papers on. Um, However, despite doing all this work, about 4 months ago, I realized I had no idea what I was talking about. And in the sense that, what is an agent?
Mhm.
What's an agent? Who's defined an agent? Do you have a definition of an agent that's everyone is willing to agree to? I don't. What is a model? What is a workflow? What is a workspace? And hence my work over the past 4 months has predominantly been on my taxonomy for agent systems to actually define these terms because until we do, you can't certify something if you don't know what it is. If you haven't put the skin on it, you can't have a bunch of skinless entities bleeding into each other, or you're not talking about anything. No, I wasn't talking about anything. No one is talking about anything because we haven't specified what we're talking about. So that's kind of my intro, and obviously this will repeat itself during the actual conversation. All right.
Great intro. Happy to have you here, Steve. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Appreciate it, Manjay.
Hey, I'm ringing in from Australia. My first visit. Yesterday I attended the Trust over IP meeting. So just a new observer. I'm working with a couple of other guys interested in the fact that Homo sapiens, has social control, and whether the model of social control within groups of sapiens, like us sitting here, actually, might be a model that we can use in for other types of agents.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'd just like to. One of the things that I've been following on Substack is two people that are probably may or may not be familiar with people in this audience. One is Tim Bouma, who comes out of the Canadian government, and he's with DIAC and the Canadian Trust Agency, and there's a proposal coming up. The other one's Sankarshan, who's been involved in Trust over IP, and there's been some very good discussions they have had in terms of, okay, so what does all this mean in terms of agency and whatever else, and the information and control that people have over things. So there's some good thinking going on out there. In fact, I've suggested that the ecosystem call today, they've got someone from DIAC coming in a couple of weeks to do a presentation, is to have some of these guys also stand up and talk about that, because it talks to exactly those kinds of
Yeah.
issues,
Yeah.
right? Delegation, what does that mean? Right? What are you delegating? How do you control it? Pretty critical. The other thing that I will point about Tim, he said, okay, let's go back. We don't need to reinvent how things interact on our behalf. We already have that. That's already been established. That's why you have notaries and lawyers involved in very sensitive discussions or very sensitive transactions. Right, you need somebody who's a third party who's going to make sure that everybody plays nice. In fact, I'm even suggesting there's a pattern for AI agents that any transactions of any non-trivial manner probably needs to have an independent auditing agent looking at the logs of all the actions being taken by the actual transaction agents, and also a referee in the room saying, okay, this is not, you're not doing this transaction properly. There's a problem here. So we don't need to really reinvent. Perhaps we need to just capture and document, is human interaction behavior, as it's been established for thousands of years, a good working model for how agents should interact, including with humans and each other.
And definitely in each of those directions, there are large bodies of work, both in academic and in industry as well, along those lines. So one of the I think a study of LM models is to train a so-called judge model. It's kind of an oracle of some kind, which is trained very differently. You don't use arbitrary data, but go into a more of a pure reasoning kind of a entity. So that's also very well-known, well-studied approach to fill some of those roles. Okay, so maybe we would better to follow along this discussion into the spreadsheet, and I'm hoping to have a goal that we will say, hey, this would be really nice to accomplish. This would be the top in your mind what we could do. Naturally, if we don't, sort of agree on that, I think we will be able to actually dive a little deeper in each of the topic and see what is really critical that is in the right direction, is practical that we can achieve, and also that it's a topic worth investing significant effort on next year. So let me, if that's okay, let me come on. What's happening to my link? Oh, yeah. Oh, I think I'm going into the copy,
New icon.
open.
You're in edit mode,
Yeah.
probably, right?
Yeah, this is fine. Somehow it want me to go to a different tab. That's perfectly okay. Let me make it a little bit bigger. So we have a list of the topics here. I didn't put it in any kind of order, except the first one I have spent more time, so I know more precisely. But the rest of the is all the topics we had come up with a discussion, and some are in a better shape than others. Let me put it that way.
Mm.
So I don't know. The idea would be understand each of the work a little bit more, and then maybe put some name on so we know, who would be very much interested in those, and then go from there. And we have most of today's meeting basically see if we could um, complete this spreadsheet in some way.
Yeah, I agree. Start from the top and go through them and
I'd be happy to do that. So the
I already have it open, but once again, I have to sort of put my main foot forward here a little bit and say, um, this problem, I want to ask the group, what do they think about the word agent itself and how problematic it is? I, as a starting point, just because I think it's highly problematic.
Sure, yes. Anybody want to? I can venture let me say a baseline or a simple definition. It's not intended as to be all great, but it will be relatively easy to understand. That's not entirely theoretical, right? So, one way to define an agent is like a human agent. It is in some fashion autonomous. So this is a piece of software that will make decisions I didn't specify myself. So autonomous for a limited period of time is what most people like in simplified version would say. So it's a piece of software that could make decisions during a period of time, not too short. So that's
It can make decisions and it can act on those decisions. It's combined with actuators.
yeah, the act portion is to me it's a less of it, you can argue that's so you're absolutely
I'm
correct,
arguing that
right?
it should be thoroughly excluded, that all agents should be oracles and defined as oracles. And then once you
Well,
add actuation, you define it as a bot. That's my
yeah, but
principal point.
actions are also for acting in some way. Some people use the action to meant that it impacts non-digital stuff, but those are sort of uh, when you make a decision, if you don't do anything with it, then it's no decision being made. Make a decision, of course, automatically implies
Right.
that.
Right. The idea is to make an agent powerless until it's embedded in a workflow as a bot. And
Sorry,
that allows a security layer between the agent and the workflow, and therefore allows us to actually meaningfully control the agent with the workflow.
that's not definition of the agent. That's what you would like to see
Well,
the
that's why
agent.
I'm just saying that's why I want to use that definition is to be able to create a security layer between those two things. And unless you define an agent or something else as the total accumulation of generative capacity, then uh, I think we need a term for that. And Oracle, I don't, though I like that term personally, I don't think it's really something that would be adopted. So therein lies my main
Yeah,
rub.
I think that you are jumping ahead with a lot of more questions, but I'm just trying to address what is an agent.
Yeah.
It may not be a good agent, but defining what is an agent first. Then we can say, well, for a good agent, we would like to have these features. Drummond.
No, I was just going to say that I think I worry, Steve, you'd be swimming against the stream to say that the term agent doesn't have any, that you have to switch to the term bot if it has any ability to act. Not because that isn't a clean, functional separation. It's just way too many folks are using AI agents in that acting capacity. So just from a pure terminology standpoint, thinking there might be a better way to try and differentiate that.
I mean, I agree with you. It's totally swimming against the stream. And that's why it's a huge problem, is because this ambiguity at the center of the entire industry is likely to go forward. I don't think my project will be successful, but and I think the term Oracle is a great term, which I could use instead for sort of live models instantiated with context that are doing inference together and then putting a generated output. But I don't think that that's acceptable either. Like, I would prefer never to say the word agent ever again because it's just so fraught. But that's not going to go anywhere. So that's the problem. It is that question of how do you reclaim it, or do you try and create a separate set of distinctions that people aren't going to pay attention to? So yeah, that's why I'm really am just in a desperate state almost coming to you guys to try and find some answers here because I'm not really working it out.
Eric?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we did last year was we decided that we needed to focus on um, getting comfortable with a lot of the terms that are floating around that are being invented every day. And so that could be one of the tasks that we have again this year is to really sort of be a little bit more focused on when we say agent, what do we mean? I think there's a lot of people who just say, I'm not going to try to define it because it actually doesn't do any good to define it, but maybe we can define the characteristics of an agent or the attributes or what, things like that. But yeah, it could be a little work stream here to say, what are some of these terms that we want to be comfortable with, we want to align on, and be able to either point to different definitions that already exist to help us when we're working through some of these problems.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we started a little bit last year, but we didn't go too far.
Yeah, the good way for discussion is basically define those characteristics. And the thing, I mean, to one way to think about this problem is to define it with the minimum requirements of what is an agent. And then we could say, along that big space, we want to say, we want to promote this type of agent, and you give a adjective to further narrow it down. That way you could have, a flexible definition.
Yeah, I think that adjective might be the approach. Yeah, that sounds like a
Yeah,
good approach.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
Right, because otherwise you're gonna have many names, and there's not many names to choose from that we feel easily, explainable and differentiable. So that could be one way to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, at some point I do have my taxonomy for agent systems, which I have already imported into Spec Up T, and I can put a link to that there, but that's what I'm primarily going to continue to be working on until I, get it to some point where it's solving the problem. So
Yeah.
thank
I don't know where to put it here. Maybe Eric, would that be good on this the second item here that we go better define the
Mm-hmm.
what is agent we mean and what kind of
Could be.
variations of that, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, so I mean, I first apologize. I had to sort of, I was very scarce last quarter, and but I had some other things. But it's interesting when you take a step back because for the first 3 quarters, all in AI agents, this and that, and you take a step back for 3 months, and then you come back and realize that the problems have not yet been solved. And so we're still dealing with these. Everything is so fast. But yeah, we're still trying to figure out what is the how are we going to provision identities to agents and how are we defining an agent and all that kind of stuff. So this work here, this work stream, I'll be able to get that started back in February because I will be overseas the rest of this month. But I definitely do want to continue on this framework. It's not a spec, it's not a white paper. Although it might end up being a white paper, but it's a way of thinking about the agentic space so that we can all have we can bring the technical people, the UX people, the business people, the et cetera, and all have a conversation, a productive conversation on, how these agents should be developed, deployed, and evaluated and tuned and et cetera, et cetera. So definitely want to keep this thing going.
Mackie.
Yeah, maybe I just wanted to add that, beside what Wenjing said, the first part of his definition where it's a piece of software, I would add that, it has generative, obviously, capabilities plus reasoning. So I think the reasoning capability is also differentiated between a random pre-programmed bot. So an
Yeah.
RPA, for
Yeah,
instance.
that's exactly my definition that I use in my paper.
Yeah, so that's one dimension we can look into. Yeah.
So
Well, one of the things that, we're also sitting in on the diff trusted AI agent stuff, which, we talked about co-joining, and I know several people from this group attend that meeting as well, is a concern that data exchange and trust exchange are key aspects that, to some extent, in a rush to say, okay, we want a cloud of agents all doing stuff together. And part of the question there is, okay, so how do I know you're presenting me, maybe there's somebody who's, I'll take travel as an example, somebody who's a travel booking agent that can help you, find what you're looking for, so they act as a contact point, and they're going to deal with a whole chain of additional agents down the, throughout potentially the world, and certainly talking with the hospitality travel, content experts, the domain experts in it. One of the overwhelming problems that exist in travel is the lack of a concrete, consistent mechanism to know, hey, I'm dealing with some third party in, Afghanistan, right? How do I know to trust you? And so what they have seen for many years is SSI with, cryptographic, I've got a trust registry, I've got some measure of, how reliable is that country's trust registries of certified organizations that are cryptographically verifiable. Same thing in terms of, there's a project that some of the people at Trust over IP are involved in, which is the UN CFAC, which is, global supply chains. The same problem. Right now, the only trustable thing is a piece of paper that there can only be one copy of, because it is the controlling piece of the pie. So certainly, trust between agents, establishing, okay, are you a trustable agent? Are you actually the agent you claim to be? And also distribution of personal information. Do you want, the first agent to grab your entire personal profile and ship it all the way down and across, or is it a transaction by transaction, agent by agent, on demand requests? So, some of these things are, it's not just about agents, it's how do they communicate and how do they play with data. So.
Okay, so we have I think definitely a lot of deeper discussion should allocate time to do. Maybe, what is an agent, or more precisely, what kind of agent, what characteristics they should have or shouldn't have. Those are probably, what some of the first discussions we should have. But let me try to sort of define the first work item. So this is a what we call agent protocol over TSP. So this is very narrowly defined, and the agent protocols we probably start with will be the MCP protocol. And if you understand a little bit of background, it is a protocol defined between a client and server, and it used in typically a particular way, so that you are essentially supplying the information to a LLM model, at the same time also allowing the LLM model to control some kind of tool, or we may say actions. And so that is in a way, it's the hands, the eyes of the LLM model. And so that's one particular way the MCP protocol already defined how that works. This particular work is simply say the MCP itself needs a trust model, and they initially didn't have one, and currently are working on put OAuth on that, and we are proposing to use TSP. So that's the essence of this piece of work. It will be a specification, some open source implementation of it, and and in addition to that, we added number three is the how to then realize, credential checking, authorization, delegation, that kind of main scheme of things in this layer too. And maybe some demo applications, etc. So that's the scope. We hope not to go too far out, but just limit to that initially, so we could do a reasonable, decent job, and maybe introduce that to the MCP community. So that's the first item here.
And I can offer to coordinate with MIT's Nanda project, which I'm pretty involved with as well.
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
So, what's the status of that, Wenjing? Because I know you guys, or you had a team working on that. I mean, it's pretty much complete,
Um,
or I'll let you finish typing.
yeah. The so we have a general idea
Mhm.
how this could work. We also initially implemented the one way to do it, and then we realized, there's a maybe cleaner way of separation. So we modified a little bit, and that is in sort of a proof of concept. It can be tested, it can be demoed, looking pretty good. And we thinking what write down how it's been done as the first draft of the specification.
Can you demo that here in one of the meetings?
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
would love that. Yeah.
We exactly, yeah. Well, so the I mean, because MCP project itself is going very quickly, and there's a lot of people working on the OAuth related authentication and authorization.
Yeah.
I think once that is settled down, it will become cleaner or easier for us to plug it into. Right now, it's
Mhm.
like both sides are moving, and so it's kind of difficult. But it should be relatively straightforward. And we present TSP as a transport in this map. So once you have uh, a TSP transport plus a wallet on the two ends, then I think the all the functionality features will come in.
So what happens if you don't have, what if they're, so the wallets are
It are
key part
mandatory. Yeah, so
mandatory?
you can say there's an object is the wallet in your local software instance, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
protocol which is the TSP.
Mm-hmm.
And so you think that way, it's relatively like mentally straightforward. But of course, your actual logic will change, right? Because the way that you deal with TSP's pattern versus ORs are quite different.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, all right. I mean, we don't want to go too far into this, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
To talk.
And so my thinking would be that we produce a draft very quickly, then we can go over and debate, and a lot of these questions will become much more concrete, on like exactly, what, but we're working on as a one way of essentially implementing or solving the issues we're talking about. um, the spec itself doesn't mandate you must follow this good way. We could then, potentially write for example, in our trust framework, the second work item, to say here are a right way to use it, right? Because that would be a higher layer document talking about what is the best practice.
Mm,
And we probably the software will reflect those best practices, and so the pattern will become available.
mm.
While usually the protocol itself only insists on some uh, how should I put it? So the some way are already, in the design of a protocol already enforced, but I'm sure people will figure out other way to use it. We won't be certain how it works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so the um, the framework within MCP creates most of the software framework that practically people have been working on, creates this application, and it's technically um, it's kind of a body and then with a, like the head with the LLM, and then you use MCP to connect to, your eyes, your your hearing, your other senses, and also control arms and legs, so you can do stuff. So that's basically what the model is, in a very simple fashion. And of course, all of these components can be extended and stretched. And then you can go talk to other agents, etc. So this is a software design pattern that's forming up, and that's MCP is embedded into that. So the notion of MCP implies this kind of a software decomposition. Um, the TSP and our design provide is a way to, for example, to fine-grained authentication and authorization, or people call it delegation. Um, because in the old system, the scope and time are very inflexible. Here you can, arbitrarily create it, as fine-grained as you would like to, and it's very dynamic with a consistent identity, which is what information you have in your wallet.
Mm.
Okay, so if you compare to OAuth, for example, the mechanism will be quite different. Again, I pointed a few very simple ones. So there are time durations controlled by a timeout, and the scope is some kind of a pattern is not fully defined. So you would have to introduce more framework to do it. And the scheme of the authorization, or the basis, the theory of trust, for example, are quite different. And here, the theory of trust lies with the entity. So you would have to deal with a trust relationship versus a authentication system that sort of will give you a quote unquote guarantee.
Mhm.
So can
Is
you?
this, but is it, I mean, is this a trend? Sorry, just the part about the wallets. Are we going to assume that this is industry-wide, that that agents will all come with a wallet because that's where their credentials are going to be held, and or is that just our thinking or your thinking?
Great question. Great question. I don't think currently, so we will be promoting that vision, right?
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
Okay. We will be providing an alternative.
Uh-huh.
Now, one other way to look at it is that others would have a similar mechanism. They may not call it wallet. They may not be sort of going to this more abstract notion of it. But
Mhm.
for example, like in a way you do it, you have use an API, you need an API key. That key
Mm.
has to go somewhere. And
So,
they
right.
keep telling you you need a safe place to store the key. And usually, to me, that sounds like a wallet, right? So practically,
Well,
we would need something
Steve
like
needs
that.
to, yeah, yeah, then we need to get the wallet definition right, because
You are absolutely
yeah.
right. You're absolutely right. So I'm thinking that even if they don't do it that way, they would end up in practice some kind of wallet anyway, and they have a protocol, so OAuth, and this a particular
Yeah.
workflow pattern.
Yeah.
It seems like we are along the similar track, but maybe with a different choice of the protocol.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anyway, these are define this work item well enough. Like we kind of feel how is that?
Yeah, the thing that strikes me is if you're trying to delegate something to an agent, and an agent has a very different model from a human being, then that's overly complicating by having two complete, if agents are supposed to be acting on humans, having a completely different model would be extra work, because
Yeah,
every
Neil,
transaction.
you have a great point, and a lot of people pointed this out too, and especially in some, like I know, in practical enterprise domain applications, people tend to be they found it's easier to simply make the agent as if it's a person. And now some people really hate that.
Mhm.
But our help say the attraction here is that if I'm a salesperson, I need to go to some company and say, hey, use our AI software. It is reasonably easy to sell. Say this is as if you have a another super genius person. It may
Sales
not
agent, yeah.
be really friendly, may not be very emotionally sound or anything else, but it is a very efficient worker.
Mm.
And give you a employee ID, give you email address. You can file bugs
Phone
or
number.
submit a request the same way I used to, and that is a attractive. And the chatbot too, right? Is a person you talk to, is a service agent. So we mentally already understand this, and this is simply sort of hack into our that kind of a thinking and make it the at least the sale process much easier to do.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, we could definitely go discuss the downside of this particular model, but that is a lot of argument for it too.
Yeah. Well, I think it is interesting that uh, if we remember that agents are here to do human work. I mean, I don't think there's
Yeah,
any agents that are doing work for, they'll be doing work for other agents, but ultimately it's because some human wants something done. And I think it also makes that accountability link that they're just as accountable as a human would be if the human were doing that task.
right. And it's fitting the pattern of introducing these machines into a space designed for humans.
Yeah.
So the robots were just a physical form, and why the robot need to look like us because all the physical infrastructure were built for us right now, and it will
And
be the agent will be immediately much easier to fit into that the space. And
actually, and yeah, and it's true that like rather than us trying to fit into their space, it's like no, the whole explainability thing. Like we need to understand what's going on, and you need to be able to explain it to humans in human terms, and
yeah,
and rather than just saying, oh, it's an agent, you don't understand what it's code, don't worry about it.
and then you can assign its responsibility. Like for example, if something went wrong, what happens? Well, you can assign that to this human employee. You can say, well, you are it's this agent's manager now, and you're
Yeah.
responsible. So something that is easy to understand.
Mm, yeah.
Well, I think that you've hit on a key point there, which is that I think that the more powerful agents should definitely be tied to particular individuals so that if that agent goes awry, that
Rogue.
individual is punished either reputationally or in other
Exactly.
ways that they actually have to stake the agents, more powerful agents, with their either their personal currency, their reputation, or something else. And
Right.
they have a fiduciary, and the agent then has a fiduciary duty to that person to protect their reputation and not do anything that's going to cause that person to be punished because it's executed its duties wrong.
Yeah, yeah. So that person has if it's again in the enterprise example, the person can be punished. The agent, the software cannot be punished. The software maker can be, and so you have a contract to assign certain responsibility to the to the software maker, and so the legal framework also fit reasonably well
Mm,
in this
But
model.
if you have but you have a digital twin of an employee, the employee should be directly responsible for that twin and know that and obviously use a reputable software agent as the basis of their own twin. But the idea of particularly if you go employed somewhere, it's like your tools, your professional tools that you take with you. You're a professional and these are the tools you use. You're responsible for your own tools, not your employer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so this employee would need to like we were talking about in government service space, and the person, this particular employee will need to know how to shut it down, how to take control of something, and fix it manually. There's a lot of things this person would need to understand and therefore be fully trained to do that. So that creates a job, and the job is assigned to a person, and the person can be responsible, can be punished by some way.
Your agent away.
Yeah. Um, Again, the other example I've talked in the past, I think it's worth repeating again. This kind of discussion happened in the medical setting even more, like rigidly. So you have a full understanding of liability, and there are all these kind of a definition of legal terms of what type of liability, who owns it. And so in this case, the doctor would be treating this agent as a piece of device, in fact. And so the doctor will be subscribing this device to a patient, and the doctor will be supervising the use of it. And if something goes bad, the doctor need to be monitoring it, right? If something goes bad, the doctor is responsible to terminate it or do something intersect for the patient, and otherwise it is responsible for its a bad outcome.
Mm.
And again, I think we all define the legal framework that applies to the hospital, for example, or who the insurance company and also the software manufacturer as well in that kind of a scenario.
Now, are any of you guys aware of the GleanNet Alliance?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a member of that as well, so I can
Oh,
little cross work with that.
Excellent,
yeah,
excellent.
yeah.
And they're doing, fiduciary duties for AI agents and so forth. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they presented what he presented last year to the Ecosystem and Governance Working Group.
talking about Richard Witt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so if that looks good and you're interested in some way directly participate in this, feel free to put your name on the D column.
So
Um,
what does participate mean, Wenjing? Because does that mean is there going to be different meetings on different days
no,
or follow?
I don't believe so. So participate in more than simply reviewing, commenting, etc. So if you like to be really part of that. I don't have any other meetings, but maybe, devote more time to it, or put it that way.
But I mean, like asynchronously. I mean, because I will. I'm just trying to find a link to put my
Oh
name.
yeah, fine. It's all, but yeah, it should be fine. At the moment, I don't think this would go into that. I hope that we can stay in one meeting. So basically, we'll go offline, do drafting, etc., and then weekly we'll bring that back and for comments and inputs. If you just want to stay on, sort of spend time on those meetings, have comments, that's fine. But if you would like to be a little bit more than that, maybe contributing some of the paragraphs or offline working on that more frequently, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't have a
Okay. I
hard
will go put
limit
put my name on
define
there.
of those. But again, if you want to be further along than that, feel free to. So we will be, for instance, having to figure out, some of the MCP work. A lot of our work is related to how the MCP themselves want themselves to work in a certain way and whether that's going to fit or not, and maybe do some analysis on the dynamics of the two protocols, how they're going to come together. Do some comparison with the OAuth, for example. Those will be kind of the work involved.
Yeah, okay.
So I definitely would like to have someone has expert knowledge of OAuth. That will really help maybe make some of these steps much easier to accomplish.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay. With that, I can move
Yeah,
to,
yeah. So just a quick comment. I mean, it's been 3-4 years since I worked heavily in uh, OAuth and OpenID Connect, but
Mm,
certainly any discussions I've had, and I've been talking to some of the people who are still on the board at OpenID Connect,
yeah.
and certainly there's a lot of concern. OAuth is not looking very robust, particularly in terms of token reuse and things like that. So I'm not clear that MCP's future is really going to benefit from relying on OAuth because it's an existing technology. Certainly, I see an opportunity for more SSI specific stuff and TSP
Yeah.
to fill that role. So certainly, in my own mind, I'd like to understand, is TSP something that goes through the MCP pipe or vice versa? I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, so I will separate MCP and OAuth, right? So MCP needs some kind of a trust layer, and OAuth is one option, and we're saying TSP is another option. And that's the way we are presenting it. So part of this specification would like to summarize the differences and argue why TSP is a better option. That will be part of the document, this document.
Okay.
Yeah.
So certainly, as you know, I'm working on this travel profile, which has a lot of implications because there's a lot of very sensitive data needs to be communicated, typically on demand basis, as opposed to I'm sharing it for you to store somewhere else. So I'd certainly be very interested in participating in protocols that support the on demand approach.
Oh, that would be excellent. Yeah, and we also want to sort of from different application perspective to understand if we design this way, what really means for that particular application. Does it work, not work? What are the, pros and cons? And those will be also very useful and practical as we trying to finalize this specification. Good. In the end, the spec itself may not be complicated, but to understand those nuances and why we think this is a good way, that's the real value of this document. So yeah, any like a deep knowledge in any of these domains would be extremely valuable because otherwise we may be just, delusional thinking stuff up that have no basis, right? Okay. All right, so this is a great time. We have a few minutes. Maybe we can have Eric, you want to make a start and then we can continue next time?
Yeah, sorry. I thought I'd talk briefly about this, but I'll talk again. The trust framework is really a way to guide discussion about what a trustworthy AI agent is and draw on it establishes the pillars, like what do we need? We need identity for it to be able to trust an agent. We need to understand its purpose, and we need accountability. Sort of those are the main pillars. And then we look at that in terms of what needs to happen when you're building these agents, and then when they're deployed, and then how you evaluate them. And all that's theory. And so there's also another section for saying what's the actual reality, because no matter the intention of what you want your agent to do, they will probably end up being used in different ways that you hadn't expected. And so how do you accommodate that and tune it so it gets back to what its initial purpose was? So there's that's the basic framework. And within that framework, what we want to do is just to point to a lot of the work that's already being done in each of these areas. So where's the work being done in terms of identity, and where's the work being done in terms of accountability and liability? Where's the work being done in evaluation and tuning and et cetera? So and then help clarify the thinking about this so that when people are evaluating, businesses are evaluating, well, how do we make sure that these agents that were being sold have integrity? People that are building, how are they building to ensure that the agents they're building can be assessed as trustworthy, et cetera. So there's a lot of work that's already been done. I've just pulled it out today to dust it off. And I think starting in February, when I'm back, I want to get those meetings in the calendar.
Excellent. And are you still trying to locate another time slot for this?
Yeah, it looks like Mondays or Tuesdays, and again, the problem was that it was going to be a European, the only slots that were available were going to exclude the US, and so I'm going to look at this calendar this year and see if we can find something. It'll probably be on Mondays or Tuesdays.
What we could do is we will start with essentially limiting each topic in each meeting for a little while, so that we have a slot allocated for
For
the
a quick
main
update.
topics. Yeah,
Right. Okay.
right, right.
Yeah. But this one will need a separate one, and that's what I'm looking for. And then we can
Okay,
update during the regular meetings.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, Let me see. So 4 minutes, and I will go through the rest of them a little bit. So some may be eventually combined with the. So this row 4 is a white paper we wrote about content authenticity by combining TSP with C2P and COG. Uh, this is the paper is already done, and there was a some interest, but currently not too much yet on more of precise spec or to actually implement it in some fashion. So that's that. And then number 5, or this is row 5, I should say. This is actually number 4. This is an interesting one, and there's a discussion document there. Please check it out. And I've been thinking about from so-called this issue of from data management to behavior management, because the data management is really difficult to do. So there's some discuss explaining what is difference and whether this could be a one way of formulating the direction we want to go. And behavior management does means that we will go out of our typical way of defining, so-called verifiable information this way and that way, but into rather talking about behavior, which is very different stuff. But again, this is a very good conversation. I personally would very much continue thinking in this way, but at the moment, it's just a idea, and please follow on this ad doc, and we can see where we can put this work here for this year. AI for Trust is our working group scope says we are going to work on trust kind of information layer for better AI, and also on the other side, using AI for enhancing trust. So I thought this is extremely valuable. We may really want to spend significant more time on this question. And so that's another thread we just started late
Yeah,
last.
this is where alignment seems to where it would live, where we
Exactly.
participate in alignment. Yeah, so I definitely want to participate in this.
Exactly, exactly. And so probably we'll start with some kind of a document to better define the scope of this. But we're going to get started on that. The seventh row is a called trust relationship among agents. And Nikki started on this, and also if you read TSP, right? TSP is all about giving you a structure how to you can think about trust relationship. TSP is really managing the trust relationship in some way. And so this thought will be really interesting. And how do we do that? I think Nikki is talking about it in more of a intuitive and high-level way of these concepts and notions. And I would very much like to see how we can then turn those notions into, implementable technical solutions along these lines as well. So that's another topic. Um, and those are the ones on the some of them are just the beginning stage of it. So each one we probably should go define more precisely and potentially put some of these together if their solutions sort of merge together. So that's where we are to the end of the spreadsheet. Did we miss anything really important, like you really think we should be working on?
World hunger?
Yeah.
Drummond mentioned something in the chat
Oh,
that
okay. John is
they'll be working on first person agents. And so we probably want to make sure we get updated on that. And I don't know if that's a sort of a column or a row, but um,
Yeah, and also that's sort of my Quai.ai. That's the organization I'm coming through, and I'm the head
all
of
right, okay.
there. So,
yeah.
personal AI agents is like once again what I've been thinking about primarily for the last 2 years till I decided I didn't know what an agent was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I guess my question there is how is a personal, I mean, to me, the person credentials are about credentials. It's about the proofs. Who am I and what's my lineage and what's my backing in terms of who I am, right?
Yeah,
If that causes them to fundamentally act differently by using personal credentials, then we have a problem.
yeah, yeah. Um, so clearly many, probably all of the topics we have listed so far, um, can be worked on can be used or important for a personal agent. And I'm not sure, is Drummond still on? Whether
No,
that's
yeah,
what Drummond's in mind, or more specifically, I think one of the things we definitely need to do is once these any work we do need to, sync up with the uh, FPP and the graph working group side and how this fit in. I have some thought, but we haven't really articulated well enough. But we should probably have periodic introduction to each other so that they are aware what we're working on.
yeah,
Would that be a good way to interlock between the two working groups?
Yeah, I agree.
yeah,
There's
Yeah,
a lot of overlap, so it would be nice if we could share the workload with uh, the decentralized trust graph working group,
yeah,
and we could maybe delegate some things to them and some things we could take on our own. There's no
yeah.
point in competing documents out there that's just going to confuse people.
Yeah. So one of the if you think about both of the 5, 6, and 7, for example, what are essentially a trust relationship. What is a relationship? Is a bunch of data, right? So we are managing data, and those data can be modeled by various ways. A trust graph or a graph is one way to model them, and there are other ways to model them too. And it's very much related to how the agents are built, or eventually what is a agent. For what is an actual agent? The agent can be pointing to a version of the model, but it also can be more, I think, closely related to what the agent experience or remembers, or the memory of it. And so that will easily connect with the trust. I'm trying
graph.
to remember the trust graph working group.
TG, yeah. Trust graph is decentralized trust graph.
Decentral, okay, DTG.
DTG.
Okay,
W.
yeah. And the trust graph will become part of the information that the agent has access to, and also need to maintain it. So managing a trust relationship in a way is managing that data structure. Cool. I think I think Neil talked about we need to go talk to them, so we should prepare some of that periodic, maybe every couple of months or quarter, to talk to related working groups, to the diff as well, to sort of engage with them and let them know what we're working on. So get feedback.
Right.
Okay, so next week, what would be a good topic to start?
I'm gonna miss the next two or three.
So what do you want us not to talk about then? You want to not miss? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
No, I'll be following along. So I think the one with the most legs and the most interesting is number one, the trust bank protocol. I'd really love to see that move forward.
So I could maybe recap this item because we have some documentation and slide decks. We can walk through them, maybe do a little demo, etc. So that we could do that next week.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely be. I'll. It'll just be midnight or whatever, so I won't be joining, but I can watch the recordings.
Sure, sure, sure. Happy to do that. Um, and maybe we leave some time to also refresh the later items 5, 6, 7 because they are kind of vague right now. So we will do some iteration on those as well. Would that be a good?
Sure. Wenjing, did you leave out the A to A part with the MCP on purpose
Oh
or
yeah, yeah.
to make it more generic, right? Not only MCP, but you have done
Yeah.
stuff A to A.
So yeah. So this is what we I
Right.
meant. So the specification we can make it generic. And then the open source implementation, currently, we only have it at the MCP. I would love to start working on A2A as well, but the framework or the spec itself will be generic.
Right.
That makes
Just
sense?
throw an A to A anyway in there, just to make sure we
Mhm.
don't forget that. Make it more than to make it a generalized specification and not specific to MCP.
Yeah,
So I think it's fine to have the reference implementation for one or the other, but just make sure we don't go down the rabbit hole of MCP only.
no, no, no. The spec we want to make it generic. We may have a section say for MCP, these are these issues are only applicable to
Sure.
them. Yeah, but
Yeah.
we meant to say here is a particular model of doing things, and then for MCP we have a prototype implementation. We once we have a resource, we can easily start one for A2A as well, and we need to also sort of engage with them, and that takes some time to do.
Good.
So those are the ideas. Yeah. And I think this work item also is useful because now it's very practical. You can actually build real things with it, and then we can tie up all the rest of the conversation. And that will also help guide the direction of this work as well. So that's the idea. So we work on both sides in some way.
Yeah, I agree. I think having, the AI agent protocol is a good fit for trust over IP because um, it's a it has one leg in each side of the stack, right? There
Yeah,
is going to
yeah,
be some. It's not just purely a spec,
yeah, exactly.
and you're going to have running code, which is always nice. People can, put their hands on something.
Yeah. Um, Thanks, Steve. Let me know how I met the Nanda project once when they were in San Francisco.
You met Ramesh or did you meet somebody else?
I think I met at Hogan. There's a meetup in San Francisco last year.
Uh-huh. Okay. Hogan? Yeah, I don't think I know him, but
No,
okay.
no, Hogan. I said there's a large group of
A
people.
whole gang. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, my
Actually, I
accent.
have wax in one of my ears. I'm gonna get it cleaned out. Literally, I literally have wax in my ears. So anyway, yeah, okay, great.
So,
Yeah, there's
yeah,
a gang of them, that's for sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but I very much like to get better connected some way.
Yeah, okay, no, that's like I usually try and go to their Friday technical calls if I can, and I've gone up to MIT and I've talked with Ramesh a number of times. So yeah,
I see, I see.
okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah, and I
yeah,
actually did. a critique of one of their main papers exactly because it didn't separate out an agent from a workflow. It's what they call beyond DNS instead of their main paper. And it's this distributed registry. So the idea is that DNS would be too slow and unable to keep up. So you have to kind of keep a distributed registry instead of trying to keep one central registry of things to be able to keep up with the state of agents and, if an agent gets knocked off or whatever.
Yeah,
Anyway, I'm
yeah.
sure you got other stuff to do, so I'll. But sources like that, like all sorts of relevant links, my papers, Nanda stuff, whatever. We should probably have another column in this spreadsheet for sources,
Absolutely.
and then I can dump those sort of links as
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Insert column right. Yeah. Okay. So feel free. I think you guys all can edit as well. So feel free to add and modify things to this. Um, but somehow highlighted that I don't know whether this will allow the a lot of that kind of thing as well, so that we know next time we come here what are the new information. Great.
Yeah, so Wenjing, I just wanted to add in terms of the fifth angle or point to AI agent protocols. So I think interoperability is also important. I think, we're thinking about MCP, but we need to widen that a bit also to address some interoperability issues, perhaps. So sticking to what we have, A2A and MCP, but also an angle where we see how we can interoperate with other protocols will be important.
Yeah, do you have some name in mind that would go beyond this type of protocol, like
We do have
interoperability?
many of them, like as you were, like we have, for example, the agency and you know, and a number of them, like apart from the known ones like MCP and A2A. So we do have NAP, for example. Um,
Yes,
so a lot of them could be potential, contenders, and also they have different mechanisms like OAuth and
yes.
uh,
Yes, it
so I
would be
think.
nice within this or maybe a appendix to documentation covering all these ones. So I use the W3C as a working group or a community group talking about comparing all these protocols. So they have a very good documentation of these things. And what we could do is that we can say, hey, in this discussion, right? Maybe this will be a good appendix to sort of lift them, which ones are how, I don't know how the integration may work in each of
who has
those.
this list again? My wax ear got me again.
Yeah, it should be an
Who's
agnostic, like, focused on MCP and A2A, but an agnostic approach. So I do think, we can add a
Yeah,
comparison to something and,
yeah,
how we can, achieve integration with other protocols. So maybe we can have it as a fifth point. I think interoperability is very wide. So apart from
okay.
those comparisons, I think we need to be specific, like what we can do to actually extend, like maybe at some point we'll have some extensions, so that we can work with other protocols as well. So maybe a
Yeah.
technical aspect, uh, as opposed
Yeah,
to.
absolutely. Because
Yeah.
that's one of the actually key or the key benefit that we're proposing is interoperability. So I like that very much. Yes,
Yeah, essentially you want to create a protocol in which these existing things can be methods within that protocol, correct?
exactly, exactly.
All right.
Yeah. Once you rely on this type of information, then they are all interoperable in some way.
All right, great. So what was the list you said of existing protocols, though I missed it?
So if you search for W3C agent protocol community group, something like that. They publish or they maintain, edit a document which contains all the protocols. There's a paper as well. It's
Yeah, that'll
maybe
probably
a
get me
year
going.
old now.
All right, good. Cool, thanks.
Yeah. that will have all the protocols and they compare them. The Cisco has one, AMP, W3C is supposedly working on one themselves. And so they, they will, those documents are quite well written. And so they will answer at least the initial questions of what they are, what are the benefits for each of those protocols.
All right, great. All right, thank you very much for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So
Thank
have
you
a
for
nice day.
staying on for another 15 minutes. Yes.
Believe me, you won't be able to get rid of me.
All right. Very much welcome. Really enjoy to have you. Please look forward to seeing you a lot more.
All right, thank you, Wenjing. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye, Monkey.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.